Can you talk a little bit about disaster recovery plans and how critical those are in order to eliminate the downtime or to shorten the downtime when you have a situation where your data and your systems have been locked, compromised, whatever we want to say?
Sure, absolutely. So I think the first thing is, do you actually have a disaster recovery plan? A lot of organizations, when they get in that situation, they haven't thought through it correctly. In creating a DR plan, the first thing that we need to do is risk rank all of our systems, critical, high, medium, low. Then the second thing is establish what we call an SLA. An SLA is a service level agreement. So for critical systems, can I recover them within 24 hours? Do I need to recover them within 48 hours? And then you kind of walk down a cadence associated with that. Third item would be, how often am I going to back up those systems? Am I only going to have the data on a monthly snapshot, a weekly, a daily? And that all factors into your disaster recovery plan. Before any plan is created, you're going to need a process owner or someone to take charge of it. As we talked about a little bit earlier, systems change all the time. So those plans need to get refreshed and they need to be printed. Very important on that, because again, if the system gets encrypted, where's my DR plan? Well, it doesn't do me any good if it's sitting on a system that's encrypted. Another item to consider here is, from a disaster recovery aspect of it, again, back to the timing aspect of it, it does me no good if I have the information backed up, but it takes me 2 weeks to restore it. So you're going to have to push yourself on, yes, a system is a tier 1, it's a critical system. How fast can I get that recovered? Now, from a backup perspective in DR, we always recommend what's called a 3-2-1. That's 3 copies of the data, 2 copies of it online, and 1 copy being a back off offline, kind of air gapped. The reason we recommend that is because your adversaries, the people that are trying to break into your network, if they're going to target you as an organization, they are going to try to basically cripple your backups. And we see it time and time again, to where companies have a good DR plan and they have a copy, a backup copy, but yet the backup gets encrypted. So now I'm in that tricky situation of, yes, I did what I was supposed to do from a control perspective. I did have a backup, but yet the threat actor was able to encrypt the backup or delete the backup. So that's why we like to have multiple copies of it that are out there. And then you kind of get into the law aspect of it. So Carolyn, I think it would be interesting to understand, different countries all have different types of laws associated with backups, how often they should keep that. And also, can you comment a little bit on the legal hold notices that are out there? Even if I try to purge information, how long did I have to keep that? Because that all should be built into a backup plan.
Absolutely. So one of the other critical pieces to all of this is, exactly as Bill was saying, is think about where you need to be in terms of the data that you have, right? It depends a lot of the time, state per state, but you also might have a regulatory, meaning that you might fall into an industry standard where you might have additional obligations to keep some of the data. And this all needs to be within your incident response plan. Like, for instance, under HIPAA, you want to keep the data at a minimum of 7 years. What about outside of the US? I mean, those also go into the obligations in terms of your incident response plan. The other piece to it is, and this is also something to be thinking about, is some contractual obligations that you may have that may decrease the amount of how you need to have and store the data. It's also important to be thinking about is that your obligations to other individuals. We certainly ask that when, in the event of an incident occurring, do you have a contractual obligation that you're aware of that states that in the event of an incident, and a lot of the times, especially with recent contracts we have seen, in the event of a suspected incident, that you need to notify the vendor that you're working with within a very short time frame. So you don't want to be left in a situation where your excuse is, well, it's sitting up in the cloud, right? And that you don't have access to the contract. So if you're aware of things where you may have additional obligations, put that into your incident response plan. Put that into and make sure to write into, your incident response plan who you need to contact and how quickly you need to contact them. And then some of those contracts also speak to more expansive definitions of what's considered personal identifiable information. Each of the 50 states has different, obligations when it comes to personal identifiable information. But some of those, some of the newer contracts with the vendors that I have seen expand the definitions to include more beyond the state and federal laws. So it's certainly something to be thinking about and to include in your incident response plan from the initial standpoint.
And Margaux, do you actually, from an underwriting perspective, you guys ask those types of questions with respect to disaster recovery plans? And if companies have those, like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think now that's way more frequently discussed. Previously, it was more of, do you have the plan in place? What does it look like? Now they really want to understand how would that process play out and have you tested it? Because so much of that is so important. Of time is of the essence when an incident occurs, and making sure that there's no unreasonable delay because you have to find the information or you haven't tested or it's not up to date. So those are the things that are thinking about, because every minute, second, hour counts.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I know that Bill and I talk about all the time in terms of client, like, let's just say you have to bring your systems back up. What is one of the questions that Bill asks all the time is, well, what is the order, right? That you need to bring your systems back up. Tell me, what is the priority in terms of from a business perspective? Because that part is critical. I mean, business interruption losses is one of the largest ones that are out there. And it's certainly one that is becoming increasing by the day. I mean, as we were just talking about, how long can you be down, right? What's the way that you want to come back up? Because sometimes it doesn't go just, server 1, server 2, server 3. It's server 1 and 5 must be together, and all of those. And what about your email server? Is that number 1 on the list? What about the sensitive information, client data? Those are the kinds of questions that you need to be thinking about and certainly have written down into your incident response plan.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, you can click through to the next video right here. Also, if you'd like to stay up to date on more videos like this, like, subscribe, and follow.